Hi guys, what's up? And I'm back with another video. And in this video, I'm going to be giving my reviews of 6 books that I read in last couple of months. And I know it's not that much, but it is what it is. These 6 books includes 4 mangas and 2 novels. And yeah, let's start with the reviews. Okay, so before dwelling into the reviews, please do subscribe the channel and like the video. It really does help the channel. Okay, so let's start with the review. So the first book that I read is called Rage by Richard Bachman and better known as Stephen King. And some of you might ask, why would you read a discontinued book, right? Uh, I mean, it is because that particular reason only. And I also got a Kindle a couple of months back. So yeah, I said, why not? Okay, so let me ask you, have you ever read a book that made you feel uncomfortable, but at the same time you couldn't look away? That's exactly how I felt with Rage by Richard Bachman, better known as, Stephen King. This book starts with a bang, like literally, we follow Charlie Decker, a disturbed high school student with, serious authority issues, who one day kills one of his teachers and then takes his class as hostage. Pretty dark stuff. But what really surprised me is that after this shocking opening, the story doesn't go in the direction that you would expect. And what stood out to me was the contrast, you know, between Charlie and one of the another student, which was called Ted Jones, I think. Yeah, the book, continuously drop hints that they are actually very similar. Like they are both intelligent, both come from, dysfunctional families, and both have their, own problems. The difference between them is that Ted hide his pain behind a perfect image, while, Charlie unleashes all of his anger and violence. They are like two sides of the same coin. Ted is the light side and Charlie is the dark side.
Two players, two sides. One is light, one is dark.
And as the, story goes on, Ted slowly realizes that he's actually the one trapped. He's the real prisoner in that classroom. And that psychological tension between them is what kept me hooked. Yeah, this novel really dives into themes of sanity, morality, and what can, drive someone to cross the line. I actually like the writing style. Being inside the Charlie's head was uncomfortable, but still very fascinating. You get this, raw look at how he perceives the world, and it's not easy to read it, but it's, quite effective. The ending was also quite surprising, which I really liked. That being said, I still felt like Charlie was in the, wrong the entire time, and by the end, it almost, seemed like he got away with, too much. That left me, unsettled and not in the best way. So overall, while Rage is an interesting psychological study and definitely thought provoking, it didn't completely land for me, and that's why I'm giving it 3 stars out of 5. Okay, so let's talk about the next book. It's called Burn the Negative. In this book, we follow Laura Warren, who thought she had left her horror-filled childhood behind back when she starred in a notorious, slasher movie, which was rumored to be cursed. But when she was sent to cover a TV reboot of that same film, deaths begin piling up in ways eerily similar to the original one. And now she must uncover the truth behind this so-called, curse before she becomes its next victim. And yeah, now talking about the book, overall, I would say it was a good story. It was engaging enough that I actually, finished it pretty quickly. The pacing worked well and it felt, and it kept me curious about where things were going. And, but here's the thing, most of the characters just, didn't stand out to me. The only one I actually found, interesting was called Beverly. She was a psychic one, and she felt more developed and layered as compared to everyone else. Uh, who honestly just kind of blurred together in my opinion. And when it came to the big reveal and the climax of the story, I wasn't fully, convinced with it. It didn't feel, believable to me, and that, weakened the impact of the ending for me. So overall, Burn the Negative, was fine, not amazing, not terrible either, just an okay time killer. And if you are, looking for something, quick to read and don't mind a few flat characters, to be honest, it might work for you. But for me, it's not one I would, really brave about. So let's move on to the next book, which is called, it's a manga actually. It's called All You Need Is Skill. And from here on, let's start with what ifs, right? What if every time you died, you woke up right back where you started? Sounds interesting, right? That's the hook all you need is skill, and let me tell you, this manga is high octane, action packed, and absolutely addictive. The story follows Kiji, a new recruit fighting an alien invasion who finds himself stuck in a time loop. Like every time he dies on the battlefield, he resets back to the start of the same day. Interesting concept. It's brutal, it's intense, and honestly, it's such a clever way to mix sci-fi with non-stop action. And what makes it even better are the characters, especially Kiji and Rita. Rita is this legendary soldier known as the Full Metal Bitch, and her dynamic with Kiji is one of the best parts of the story. And yes, amidst all this carnage and time loops, there's also a, love story woven in. So what else do you need, right? Personally, I love this manga. The pacing, the action sequence, the character growth, it all kept me hooked from start to finish. My only complaint, I wish it was longer. I didn't want it to end, and honestly, I really wished there was a, happy ending like in the movie adaptation, uh, which is called Edge of Tomorrow. But at the same time, the darker ending here in the manga gives it, a weight that sticks with you. So overall, all you need is skill, is short, intense, and memorable. If you like action, time loops, or just, great sci-fi with some heart, this is absolutely worth your time. And after you finish it, you will definitely you definitely need to check out the movie Edge of Tomorrow. It's based on this manga, and it's also a really solid watch. So yeah, thumbs up for this manga. I gave it 4 stars. Loved it. Okay, so now let's talk about the big three mangas of Junji Ito. Uh, uh, yeah, this is where it gets interesting for me. Uh, I know these are most famous works of his, and these include Gayo, Uzumaki, and Tomie. I read these three mangas, and these are the only three mangas which are, you know, has its, full story sort of. And yeah, let's talk about them. Okay, so let's first talk about Uzumaki. No, let's start with Gayo actually. Don't forget the what ifs, right? What if one day the ocean decided to fight back? Sounds interesting, or maybe stupid. Let me explain it. So that is the unsettling premise of Kayo. It's a horror manga by Junji Ito, and like most of his work, it's as strange as it's is disturbing. We follow Tadashi. Again, I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. Who's caught in this middle of an apocalyptic nightmare as fish equipped with mechanical legs starts to invade the land. As at its core, though, the story it's really about his desperate attempt to protect and save his girlfriend, known as Kaori, as everything spirals out of control. One thing that really stood out to me was the artwork. Junji Ito's illustrations are incredible. They are so detailed and so grotesque that you cannot actually smell the rot and decay coming out of the page. And the build-up of the story was strong too, with a great sense of dread and tension. But here's where my mixed feelings come in. I honestly wanted more from the story. By the time I reached the ending, it felt abrupt and incomplete. And that's not just Kayo. A lot of Ito's stories leave you with more questions than answers, to be honest. For example, What was the real purpose of the legged fish, right? Why invade the land now of, all the times? And how did these, sea creatures even get fused with technology in the first place? uh, I found myself, finishing the manga and, immediately thinking about all these unanswered questions. And maybe, that's a part of horror, being left with mystery. But in this case, the, open ending didn't really work for me. Yeah, so overall, Gaia was a, good read with, phenomenal artwork and a solid build-up. But the payoff, didn't hit the way I hoped. And for me, this one is a two-star read, but if you're a fan of Junji Ito's unique brand of, unsettling horror and yeah, so in my opinion, then it's worth checking out, and you will definitely, come away with images burned into your brain. Okay, so now let's talk about Uzumaki. What if an entire town, was cursed by what? By spirals. That's the, bizarre and unsettling premise of Uzumaki by Junji Ito, a manga that is, so many horror fans absolutely love. But unfortunately, my experience with it was a little different. Now, one thing I'll give Junji Ito, right away is obviously his artwork. The illustrations are, phenomenal, creepy, detailed, and, absolutely haunting. That's, consistent across all of his work, and Uzumaki is no exception. But, when it comes to, the storytelling, that's where I, struggled. For me, the story just didn't fully engage, especially, in the middle section. It dragged, and I found myself, losing interest. By the time the plot started to, reveal itself towards the end, I was, already checked out. And it felt like the, answers came way too late, and by then I was just, pushing myself to read it. Uh, this is actually how I, feel about a lot of, Junji Ito stories, to be honest. They have amazing artwork, intriguing setups, but then a lack of, clear answers to some of the, bigger questions. And with Uzumaki, I went in, with really high hopes because it's often called one of his, best works. But sadly, I just didn't enjoy it as much as other did. So overall, while the artwork is absolutely stunning and the concept is eerie, the storytelling, fell short for me. So I'm giving Uzumaki 3 stars out of 5. Last but not the least, let's talk about Tomie. Tomie, I don't know how do you pronounce it. What if there was a girl who could drive anyone to madness, even murder? That's the premise of Tomie by Junji Ito, and out of all of his works I have read, this one is easily my favorite. From the very first chapter, I was hooked. Tomei as a character is fascinating, beautiful, mysterious, and manipulative in, ways that make people around her lose control. What really kept me invested was the way the story kept, unraveling, showing different sides of her and making me more and more, curious about what actually makes people do, such horrible things in her presence. Now, like with most of the Junji Ito work, you are not going to get clear answers. There's never a really scientific or logical explanation for Tommy's existence or why she has this, effect on other people. Normally, that kind of ambiguity, frustrates me, but with Tommy, especially, it actually, worked. The mystery around her just made the, whole experience more unsettling and interesting. I also like that this manga felt more cohesive compared to, some of Ito's other short works. The ending, while strange, was still, satisfying in its own, creepy way. It really, felt like a complete experience rather than something, cut short. That being said, I don't think I'll be, diving into more of Ito's shorter collection anytime soon because they don't quite, work for me. But if there's ever more about Tommy, I would definitely be curious to read it. So overall, I'm happy I ended, on a high note with this one out of all my Junji Ito reads. So Tommy stood out the most, and I really, enjoyed it. I gave this 4 stars out of 5, and I hope you do enjoy it as well. Okay, so that's all the books and mangas I read in the last couple of months. If you have read any of these books and mangas, do let me know uh, what you make of it. and which one did you like, which one did you not like. Comment your thoughts down in the comment section. And if you have made it this far in this video, please do subscribe and like the channel. Also, uh, I am currently reading The Wager by David Gran, and I'm absolutely loving it. I'm around 30% into it. So yeah, so far so good. I'm liking it. So yeah, do subscribe and like the video, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.